Hi, welcome to Boats, Booze, and How-Tos. I'm Mr. Jeff, and I thought I'd take everyone through a little issue that we had with Blessings of Liberty. It's the 320 Sundancer with the 350 Mercury mags. We were basically out with the family on the way to a sandbar, and everything on the system just shut down. We're up on plane. We have about 7 or 8 people on the boat, and basically all the controls got stuck in place. So the manual controls on the top, whatever RPMs I was at the time, like 3,800 or 4,000 RPMs, those stuck in place. The smart craft unit went blank on me, and basically both engines shut down and the boat went down, and we were stuck. So let's go through what the issue was. Initially I thought it was a fuel pump, and it ended up being an issue with the fuel pump fuse. So that was good news. So the first thing I did when the boat went down in the water, I started trying to think about, okay, why would it go down? I'm looking at the controls, they're all locked up. So I asked everyone to kind of go to the back of the boat or down into the cabin, and tried to start cranking the engines over. So what would happen is the port side engine would crank over. So let me show you basically how that's just cranking over, no problem. So I went up to the control, hit it, and you see the port side engine cranked over, no problem. So when I would try the starboard side engine, this is basically what was happening. So as you can hear, the starter was cranking over. The spark plugs are only about a year older, so I had those changed out. And I think like 350 hours or something like that. It's a 2005, so I had that done in like 2022, 2023. And but you could kind of tell that it wasn't getting fuel. Like the engine's kicking over, so normally you need air, fuel, and spark. So it just kind of sounded to me like it wasn't. So I'm thinking I probably blew somehow the fuel pump failed. That's what my initial thinking was. But like I mentioned earlier before, all my electronics were all frozen. So that kind of indicated there was an electrical issue. And what was kind of weird about, the SmartCraft issue where that's all blank, I kind of started thinking about it. There's some kind of built-in safety feature where both engines shut down at the same time. I would imagine, you don't want to put too much torque on one side, the transmission on one versus the other. So it's kind of like a built-in safety feature, I guess, that Merc Cruiser put together on board. So once I got everybody in the back of the boat, I went down into the bilge, and the first thing I started doing was thinking, okay, it's electrical, it's probably some kind of breaker. So I'm down in the bilge, and we'll show you real quick, where I went first. So here we are down in the bilge, and the first thing that I went to was the main breaker panel. And, I'm kind of going through everything, and, these are basically most of the accessories and the bilge pumps and that type of thing. And then also here, just making sure that, nothing was, tripped off. And then also on the engines, there's a main breaker. I gotta find it now. Where is it? Right here. I can't remember how many amps it is. It's pretty high. It's like 20 amps or something like that. And checking both of those, and those were both fine as well, had not tripped off. There's also another panel of breakers right underneath the helm there, and none of those had tripped off as well. All right, so I went through all the breakers that I could find, and to be totally honest, at that point in time, my level of frustration was really high. I got a bunch of family, my wife, my kids on board. I had one engine to drive on, so I was going maybe 5-6 miles an hour. Went over near the sandbar and put the anchor down. We had a nice little swim, but we cut the day short, and because we were about 10 miles away, with one engine. I put it back. It took me about 2 hours to get back to the dock. We had a nice time, but it was mostly just a really slow boat ride with, people enjoying adult beverages. So we got the boat back, got it all tied up, and full disclosure again, I called my mechanic Mike and I'm like, look, I don't know what's going on with this. I don't think it's getting fuel. We kind of talked through it again, talking about breakers, all that kind of thing. He came out one evening and he started showing me some fuses on the boat that quite frankly, I did not know about. So let's go down. I'm going to show you where those fuses are, and that was the main source of the problem. Okay, so what we started doing, Mike and I, who's a great young mechanic, he quickly went to the breaker that I showed you before, which was not trip, but there's another wire harness right up here that is specifically, and I haven't looked at all the schematics, but there are 3 fuses in line here. These are 20 amp, like really small mini fuses. You can see how small they are. They're probably about the size of my fingernail. And it was actually this middle one right here. So we're going through it with a multimeter or his light meter, and that was the culprit right there. All right, so I got the mini 20 amp fuse replaced. And if you listen real closely, I don't know if you're gonna pick up on it or not, after I replace that fuse, when I go to throw the switch, when I put it at the halfway mark, when I just kind of rock it over halfway, you can actually hear the fuel being injected into the engine for it to start. And that was one subtle difference that I didn't pick up on when I was on water, when my frustration was taking over. So let's show them point number 2, that it's gonna kick over, and try to pick up that noise if you can. I don't know if you can. So I just rocked it. And that was a little hissing sound. Now I've got enough fuel to start, and we're good to go. All right, so we wanted to show you this fuse. There's a tiny little break in the blade there. So if you would have pulled it, it would have been pretty tough to be able to see it or not. So we want to show you with a multimeter how to test them. So I wanted to show you on the multimeter what you can do. This isn't a sound indicator. It's just a kind of a cheap old one I've had for probably 20 years. But if you put it on, I guess that's 20,000 ohms, you can see if the circuit is broken, it'll be at 1. When it's connected, it'll go down to 0. So on the bad fuse, if I could do this with my big old fingers, here's the bad one, it should remain at 1. So there's a couple of little openings here in the blades on the top. If you go in and poke on these on the top, there I'm hitting the metal, it's showing that it's open, it's a bad fuse. You can barely see that this blade is compromised. There's just a tiny little slit. It's not like it blew out and there's like black spot in there, like, some of the old fuses but you really just need to be able to go in and try it. So on a good one, if I go in, if I can do it 2 hands, you can see it goes down to 0 because that blade is not compromised. That little element in there goes down to 0, just like these are connected together. So end of a long story, ended up being a cheap little 10-cent fuse. It was a mini, but I didn't even know where it was in the wire harness. So in addition to the regular size fuses that I keep on the boat, I also got this small little kit off of Amazon to have on board in case something like that happens again. I hope you found the video helpful. Ciao. Hey, welcome to Drink of the Day. It's Mr. Jeff. Today we have a Mexican lager from Great Lakes Brewing Company, which is in my hometown of Cleveland, Ohio. It was founded in like the late 80s by the Conway brothers. Can't remember their name, Tim and forget the other one's name. But I was basically getting out of college at the time, and that was kind of a good place to go hang out. It was their Dortmunder Gold, I think they called it, was their original beer that was real popular, and they have a great Christmas ale and others, but this is their Mexican lager that I've never had. It's a lager with lime. So we're gonna give this a try. Number 2, show you how to pour a good beer, good foam. Everybody's out there saying, how do you foam it up like that so bad? You want all that carbonation to get out of your beer, otherwise it's going to go to your gut and you're going to feel horrible. So we're going to let this go down a little bit, and I'll come back and have a nice taste. All right, so we let the head kind of go down a little bit. And by the way, it's Patrick and Daniel. I just looked it up. I forgot their names. Great guys. They tell a great story about how they founded it. I think they took a brewmaster from Stroh's. I think he just retired, and they brought him back, and that's how they started their Dortmunder, kind of old German style. So this is the Mexican lagered with lime. Kind of nice. I guess it already has the lime in it. It's got a iguana on the beer can. That's kind of cool. Let's give it a try, number 2. It's nice. I like the color of it. Real nice light lager. I'll tell you what, I like this a lot. Number 2, what, did we use a 10 scale on these? 10 scales? I think this is really fantastic. It's just a great summer beer. I don't know if they make it year round. It's probably, I would guess it's probably a seasonal that they do during the summer. I'm gonna give it a high score of like 8.7, rounded up to 9. Definitely a 9. Cheers. Thanks for watching.